Well, hello everyone. This is Vicar Rick. I am at the parsonage. I'm filming this message for Jam because I will be going out of town on Wednesday. So, first I need to get something to show you. Hang on one second. Ha! What do you think? Did that scare you? It's kind of a scary looking mask. Did that make you afraid? See, it's me underneath. Now my hair's all messed up, but it's me underneath. Did that scare you? It might have. It's kind of a scary looking mask. I'm going to ask you something else. How about this guy? This is my Mickey Mouse Christmas guy. Does he scare you? No, probably not. This isn't real scary. Do you see how he's dressed so? He's dressed up like Santa Claus, isn't he? Do you know when I was little, Santa Claus kind of scared me? Sometimes I was nervous to be around him. I don't know if you are, if Santa Claus scares you, if you really are excited when you get to see him. I have one other picture to show you. Hope you can all see that. That is a picture of a crow. Does that scare anybody? No? Well, I will tell you, crows kind of scare me a little bit. I watched a movie when I was pretty young, and it was about crows, and it was a scary movie. And so I'm still a little afraid of crows even today. They kind of make me feel a little creepy. So there are different things that we get scared of. Now, last week when Victor was here, he told you the Christmas story. And when we hear that story, surprisingly, there are some parts in there where we hear about people being afraid. And so I want to talk to you today about some of the different people in the Christmas story. And we're going to talk about whether you think they were brave or afraid. Now, here's what I want you to do for me. We're going to make a couple of, we're going to do some motions sort of on being afraid or being brave. So, if you think that the person we're talking about is brave, I want you to do this. And you see this? Put your hands kind of on your hips and act very brave. Can you do that? Practice that. Okay. That's what I want you to do if you think the person that we're talking about is brave. Then, if you think they're afraid, I want you to do this, like you're running away. Because then when you're afraid of something, what do? You usually try to run away from it or get away from it, right? So if you think the person is afraid, I want you to do this, okay? So we're going to talk about the characters in the story. We're going to start out with Joseph. If you think he was brave in the story, if you can remember the story, if you think he was brave, do this. If you think he was afraid, I want you to, and you can even run around if you've got room where you're watching this, or you can run around in a little circle if you want to. So do that. And so I'm going to give you the answer of what I think. Was Joseph brave or afraid? This is kind of a trick question. First of all, this is Joseph. He was afraid. You know why he was afraid? Because Mary was going to have a baby. But they weren't married yet. And Victor, I think, talked about this last week, that back in Joseph and Mary's time, you were supposed to get married and then have a baby and not have a baby first. And so Joseph was afraid. He didn't know what he should do, if he should marry Mary or if he should send her away and not get married. So he was afraid of what people would think of Mary. He was worried that they would maybe make fun of her or be mean to her because she was having a baby, even though she wasn't married. But then, later, Joseph he's brave because an angel of the Lord came to him and told him not to worry. It would be okay if he got married to Mary. And so he became brave and went ahead and got married to her. The next person I want to talk about is Mary. Do you think she was brave or do you think she was afraid? Well, I'm going to say Mary is brave. Yes, I think Mary was very courageous because like we were talking about, it was not something that people thought was a good thing back in Joseph and Mary's time when a lady was having a baby and wasn't married. But Mary was brave because she knew that the angel of the Lord Gabriel had told her she would be blessed. She was going to be carrying baby Jesus, the Messiah. And she was brave because she was going to go ahead and do that. She was going to have that baby, even though she knew she wasn't married, even though she knew people might be mean to her because of it. So she was very brave to go ahead and do that anyway. Okay, the next people we're going to talk about. Remember the shepherds that were out in the field? They were watching their flocks by night and taking care of their sheep. Do you think they were brave or afraid? And make your sign either this or this, and then I'll tell you what the answer is. The shepherds were, yes, they were afraid because the angel even said to them, do not be afraid. They were afraid when the angel came, and they didn't know what this meant. But in a way, they became a little brave later because they did go and see baby Jesus. But when the angel first appeared to them out in the fields, they were afraid. The next people we're going to talk about is the wise men. Remember the wise men that came, and Victor told you about the gifts that they brought. Do you think they were brave or afraid? I'm going to say they were brave. And if you said brave, then I think you're right. Because the wise men had to travel from a long way away. And back in Jesus' time, it wasn't as easy to travel as it is now when you can get in a car or get in a plane and you're very safe and you can travel wherever you want to go. The wise men had to walk. They had to come from a long way. And there were dangers involved in traveling that way. And so for them to come that distance to see the baby Jesus, I think made them very brave. The last person from our Bible story that I want to ask you about is King Herod. And maybe, I don't know if you remember a lot about him. I'm trying to remember if Victor told you a lot about him. So this might be a hard one to answer. But King Herod, now he was a king, remember. Was he brave? He was the king in Jerusalem. Was he brave or was he afraid? What do you think? I'm going to say he was. Did you get that one right? You might have thought he was brave because he's a king. He's the king of all the people. Why would he be afraid? But you know who he was afraid of? He was afraid of baby Jesus. Isn't that kind of strange? He was afraid of a baby. But he knew that baby Jesus was going to be the king of the Jews. And Herod was afraid that maybe he would no longer be king if this baby grew up and took his place. And so actually King Herod was afraid. He was afraid of baby Jesus. So I don't know how many you got right. And if you didn't get them all right, that's okay. Because we all are brave and afraid at different times. I want to talk to you for a minute about Victor. What did you think of him last week? How did he do? I thought he did really well. Because you know what? He was afraid. Could you tell? I could kind of tell when I watched it. I was kind of watching him. And he seemed nervous. And he would look at Pastor Lori and he'd say, is that right? Did I say that word right? You could tell he was really nervous. So let me ask you about Victor. If I was going to ask you, was Victor brave or afraid, what would you say? Show me this, either brave or afraid. What do you think Victor was last week? So I'm not sure what you answered. Some of you might have said afraid because he was kind of nervous, and you could tell by his voice and everything he was a little nervous. I'm going to say Victor was brave. You know why? He told a great story. He told a great message. But he did it being afraid. He was nervous to talk to all of you and afraid of how he would look. But yet he did it anyway. And in the Bible, we read about people who do things even though they're afraid. Moses was to lead the Israelites. He was supposed to be their leader. God called him for that. But Moses was afraid because he didn't like to talk in front of people. He stuttered a little bit and he was afraid. And God said, well, I'll have your brother Aaron help you with that. And I'll try to equip you so that you're able to do it. And I'll give you the right words to say. So Moses went ahead and led the Israelites even though he was kind of nervous and afraid to do it and really didn't necessarily want to be their leader. Then later, when Joshua was going to become the new leader in place of Moses, Joshua certainly was nervous. Moses had been a great leader. Now Joshua had to take over. Deuteronomy 31:8, this is what Moses says to Joshua, and this is a good verse for all of us too. The Lord himself will lead you and be with you. He will not fail you or abandon you, so do not lose courage or be afraid. So that's what Moses told Joshua, but it's a good verse for all of us. God is always with us. He will lead us, so we don't need to be discouraged. We don't need to be afraid. One other question for you. Do you know how many times fear is mentioned in the Bible? Did you guess a number? 365 times. But it doesn't just say fear. The actual expression in the Bible that said that many times is fear not. Fear not. 365 times. That's one time for every day of the year, which is really kind of cool if you think about it. One time for every day of the year, we could say that expression. We could find a different place in the Bible where it says that. And that's a good reminder for us to every day to say to ourselves, fear not. If we're afraid of something, to not be afraid because God is always with us. So thank you for being here for the message today. I'm sorry I couldn't be there today, but I look forward to being in person soon. But before we go, let's pray. Dear God, thank you for being with us so that we don't have to be afraid. Help us to remember that you're always there. You're always walking beside us. No matter what we're afraid of, you're there to be with us. And all God's children said, Amen. Well, I hope you all have a very happy and Merry Christmas. If I do not get a chance to see you before then, I hope you have a great Christmas. And I will look forward to seeing you soon.